This specific part of the game, if Boston College plays well, they will beat the Cal Bears. I'll explain what it is on today's episode of Locked On Boston College.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black. I'm the editor of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you want the news, analysis, and details on your Boston College Eagles, you are in the right place. Locked On Boston College is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. We've got a packed episode as we get ready for Cal. Big things to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about recruiting today, though. I want to get into 3 recruits that I've noticed really balling out during this fall high school games. 9 conference games. It is there. It's coming. We talked about it yesterday. I'll explain what it looks like and what the future schedule looks like for BC and how it could be impacted. And a stat that will determine the game against Cal. Let's start this off. The Cal Bears come in on Saturday, the Cal Golden Bears, and they are 3-1. They've won, they beat Oregon State, they beat Minnesota, and somehow they got shut out by San Diego State. Now you look at this team. There is one specific area that will make or break Boston College, in my opinion. Obviously, there's issues like if BC just fumbles the ball and does all the things that we just saw in the last 2 games, they're going to lose. That doesn't matter. I'm assuming that, that's not going to be the biggest issue in this game. If that's the issue, then I shouldn't be doing a daily podcast on this because it's just going to lose them. But if they clean things up, there's another area that they need to make sure that they are on in this game, and that is winning the passing battle. This is going to be a matchup between 2 great young quarterbacks. Obviously, if you're a Boston College fan, you've watched Dylan Lonergan. You've seen him play really well. He's got 9 touchdowns. He's only got 1 interception. He's averaging, he's helped put together the most prolific passing game in the ACC right now. I know the record doesn't show what you would hope for with passing yards like that. Well, that's what happens when you fumble the ball all the time. But Lonergan has done everything that you're hoping for. On the other side, Cal isn't that far behind. They have a 4-star quarterback. Again, this is a guy that they landed through the transfer portal who was he originally signed with Oregon as a true freshman in the class of 2025 and then entered the portal shortly after that. And his name is Jaron-Keawe Sagapolutele. And JPS has been a dynamic quarterback since, he's come in and he's really opened a lot of eyes. This is a kid that looks the part of a quarterback. He's big. He is physical. He's not a dual threat quarterback per se, because he doesn't run a ton, but he moves around really well, and that's going to cause problems. So I look at both of these passing games. I know everyone's like, yeah, you got to run the ball. If BC can pass the ball here, they're going to be in good shape because Cal's pass defense is a little suspect. In the 4 games that they've played, they've allowed only 2 touchdowns, but they haven't really played against a really good quarterback yet. They allowed 250 yards in the air against Oregon State and only 200 yards against Minnesota. But I still think that this is a team that could be tested. I think this is a defense that you could win some battles with when you have wide receivers like Lewis Bond and you have wide receivers like Reed Harris, and you've had those plays with Turbo Richard that have worked really well. You should be able to pass. If you can move the ball on Cal, this could be a shootout. Really, it could. On the defensive side of things, this is where things will get interesting for BC. JPS, he's thrown for over 250 yards a game, and he's only a freshman, and he's got two wide receivers as well. I think those guys both worth mentioning. In one's a tight end and one's a wide receiver. Yeah, you have Tron Grizzle, which is possibly my favorite name of any player that I've heard play against BC. He is a 6'4" wide receiver who makes plays just like Reed Harris does. He has 15 receptions for 266 yards and 1 touchdown. And then another name, which is also awesome, is Mason Minnie, their tight end, who has 19 catches for 153 yards and 2 touchdowns. So they've got some good talent too. So For BC, I imagine that they're going to be able to throw the ball again. I think that's going to be the bread and butter of this offense. Hopefully, they can keep the track rolling so that, Dylan can do what he does. Defensively, that's where this game is going to start and stop. You're going to see, and I'm already telling you, there's two big things that are going to drive BC fans nuts on Saturday. You're going to see, JPS, I think he's like 6'4", 2 something. These types of quarterbacks in BC defenders, they're going to bounce off of them. It's going to happen. It's going to drive you crazy. I'm sure it's going to happen. But I was talking to Mitch Wolf, and he'll talk more about this later this week. Also expect he's young and he makes mistakes. So you may see a play where you're going, how did he not stop him? How did he not bring him down? Oh my God, this defense is so frustrating. But then maybe later on, you might see them strip sack him or take him down. I think you're going to see that. Hopefully, and this is where the defense has to come in, those latter plays where they are able to make a splash play or cause a negative play, which we have not seen a lot of lately. Maybe those will be, jump in more. The second piece is the secondary. On Tuesday, the BC released their new depth chart, and I got to shout out Bill O'Brien's staff for actually doing this, because Jeff Hafley for 3 years would release a depth chart on the first game of the season and not update it unless there's an announced guy that's out for the season for the rest of the year. It was basically a useless piece of paper by the end of the year. O'Brien, to his credit, has changed a few things. For instance, just offensively, you saw Michael Crounce is now listed as the starter over Dwayne Alec. That is interesting, but we're not going to talk about that right now. The bigger piece is the secondary. Sire Torrance is no longer on the depth chart. I've been thinking we didn't get an update on where his status is from the press conference on Tuesday. There really wasn't a lot to bring to this discussion. Torrance, it sounds like he's out for the year. I would imagine, just based off the comments that he had from other teammates, it doesn't sound good. He's replaced by Isaiah Ferris, who didn't really get targeted a lot last week against Stanford. Interesting that he's starting over Max Tucker, but Tucker played quite a bit too, so I would imagine you're going to see both of those guys. They're going to have a big game. And then the bigger question is, Amari Jackson's still on there. If he was out for the year, I imagine he would be off that depth chart. He needs to have a big game. I really, if you're a BC fan, hope that he comes back, because I think your defense could get by. You'd have Jackson. Davion Crouch is still on there. The pieces are there. You got to hope that the health is there. I don't feel super confident of the health of this team based off of the comment Bill O'Brien said during his press conference when he was asked about the health of BC, and he said, it hasn't gotten better. So I imagine that we're going to get some more on those availability charts later in this week. But for now, that secondary, whoever it is going to have to make some plays. They're going to have to be able to prevent the splash plays. The coverage breakdowns like we saw with Sam Roush of Stanford. You can't have that happen again. You've got to be firm. You've got to not allow this team to do more, get extra first downs and things like that. So I think the big stat I'm going to watch for is how, what JKS can do. If he can make a whole bunch of plays, this team is going to be in trouble. If BC can, let him make a few here and there, because he's gonna make plays. I'm going to tell you that now. But if they can limit them and force a few that go your way, you're in much better shape. But that's what you're going to have to watch for. That could be the difference in this game. And we'll talk more about that later this week when we do our predictions. From here, let's get into our next discussion in just a moment. The ACC makes their choice. It was not the one that I was hoping for, and I'll explain what I mean about that in terms of their conference game scheduling, which is going to change. We'll talk all about that in just a moment. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Pluses awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. Beautiful, beautiful vehicles. You can make every drive feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. So like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda. Move and be moved. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you're putting off organizing your finances, Monarch is here for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without touching a spreadsheet. I have so many different streaming services. Some of them I don't even use, and Monarch was able to show me a bunch, and I was able to knock those off and save my family a whole bunch of money. And I took that money, put in an investment, and hey, instead of just burning money, I'm actually making money off of this. That's why Monarch Money is so great. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off the first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. This is Locked On Boston College. AJ Black of Eagle Insider here. And thank you to everyone who's made Locked On Boston College your first listen every single day. You turn us on, you make us your first listen. Thank you, all of you. I love everyone who has done that, and hopefully you've enjoyed these podcasts. Now, yesterday's show, I had mentioned that there were two different scheduling models that the ACC was looking at, and I had recorded before they had made their decision. Well, it was that they made their decision, and it was one that I didn't think was the best one, which is they're going to 9-1. That means 9 conference games for the ACC starting in 2026, plus 1 out-of-conference Power 4 game. For Boston College, this is fine. There's nothing to really hate about this. The interesting thing about the scheduling is because there's 17 teams and the way that the numbers work out, one team is still going to get stuck with 8-2. And we're not sure how that's going to roll out and who's going to get what, because BC, in a minute, I'll explain how they could be one in the first couple of years. But you look at BC's schedule. Next year in 2026, BC has 2 Power 4 games on their schedule already. They're going to go to Cincinnati and host Rutgers. Yep, Rutgers is coming back again. If you want to have, remember that House of Horrors from a couple of years ago, that's going to be something up. So you have those two, and then you have URI. I am messing up where they're at. Where is it? They have Maine, Rutgers at home, and Cincinnati on the road. So there's your 3 games for next year. Boom. You're all set. You're part of the 9. You've got your Power 4 team. And you look ahead, they're mostly all set with the Power 4 edition. 2027 is the interesting one because they have 4 games already. Earlier this summer, I had announced that UTEP is going to play BC. They're also going to play Rutgers, Cincinnati, and URI. And in 2028, they're going to play UNH, Army, at Notre Dame, and at BYU. So the next 2 seasons, BC's got some decisions to make. And honestly, I'm going to guess it's a financial decision. And I imagine they're going to weigh the pros and cons. I'm not sure what the outs are for BC and some of these contracts that they make. I don't know how much they're going to have to pay some of these schools. You know, I think a lot of fans are like, oh, we're going to get rid of like URI, Maine. You're probably right. I would imagine the FCS game is probably the one to go because you don't want to cancel a game against Cincinnati. You don't want to cancel Army. I could see, though, I don't know. This is where the numbers come in, and we won't know about this. I could see UTEP. I know they like to recruit in Texas, and that would be a great opportunity to show Texas recruits, what they look like. They're not going to UTEP, but I could see that being a canceled game because there's something about the FCS game that these schools like to do. Maybe this is 9-game thing is what kills off the FCS game, and I know a lot of you folks are hoping that happens, but I wonder if they would cancel UTEP. And moving forward, I still don't think, I really, heart to heart, don't think the FCS games are going to go away. And I know a lot of you folks don't want that game to happen because it's just what they do. It's better or worse. It's a win every year. Holy Cross was pretty close, but every year it's usually an easy win. Look at what O'Brien did the last 2 years. You start the season off, and again, if I was a scheduling guru, I would love the FCS game in the middle of the season, make it like basically a third bye game. That would be nice instead of the first game of the season, but it is what it is. But anyways, moving forward, I still think they're going to be there. Now, in terms of the conference games, you're looking at, an extra game. On one hand, it'll be great because there's teams like I honestly like they're kind of a rival. I feel like they're a like team. Wake Forest, they don't really like blow the doors off the roof in terms of like interest, but they're kind of a peer team in the ACC. We're kind of got the same kind of, um, you know, demographic and feel to our schools. So I'd love to see them play more. On the other hand, if this means me having to cover Cal and Stanford games at 10:30 at night again, I'm going to bash my head into my desk. I don't want more of those games. I want less of those games. And I feel like adding one more is just going to add the opportunity that we're going to get more of those games. And I don't want them. I really, really don't. But I honestly, the biggest thing of all this is how the other teams in the ACC that see this. And mostly, you got to kowtow to Clemson, Miami, and Florida State, and a few others. If they're happy, then you should be happy. Because if they're, and I think I saw that this is part of they voted for this. They are, you want to keep them as happy about everything about this conference as you can, because and for Boston College's standpoint, you cannot afford to blow this thing up. You cannot afford to lose everything that you have in the ACC. So hopefully this was a decision that was catered to those schools, because they should be the teams being catered to, because they're the big breadwinners and they're the ones that if they leave, things are going to go to chaos. We don't want that. So it starts in 2026. We'll start to hear more about how the schedule is going to change. The SEC this was to match the SEC, Big 12, and Big 10, who have already gone to 9 games. The SEC just announced it like 2 weeks ago, I think it was, and then just announced their linked partner games, and then talked more about, some things that are going to be happening with that schedule, I think, soon. So we're going to get, I imagine the ACC will be doing something like that. Hopefully if they have to have the same teams every year, it'll be Syracuse, it'll be Pitt, and we'll see where it goes from there. Now, in our final segment, I wanted to get in a little bit of recruiting talk, because I haven't talked a lot about recruiting. High school season has started, and I'm going to tell you 3 recruits that have really opened my eyes during camp. During their season so far, in just a moment. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because the interface is so easy to use. I can go on for college football, Major League Baseball, NBA. It's all there, and it's so easy to use. The night of the games, I can find parlays, I can find prop bets, I can find everything to make sure that I get what I want. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. The Charitable Irish Society has been part of Boston's history since 1737, making it the oldest Irish society in the Americas. With deep ties to Boston College, its leaders and members continue a proud tradition of service. Today, the society is still living its mission, raising thousands of dollars each year to help immigrants in need, Irish and non-Irish alike. Last year, their support helped a family from Northern Ireland who are facing a medical crisis and couldn't cover rent and bills. You can be part of the impact. Membership is just $75 a year, and it goes directly to helping families when they need it most. And mark your calendar. The annual Silver Key Dinner is coming up October 29th at the UMass Club, honoring Archbishop Henning. Get your tickets for the annual Silver Key Dinner and join the Charitable Irish Society today at www.charitableirishsociety.org. This is Locked On Boston College. AJ Black here of Eagle Insider. And thank you to all who have made us part of your daily routine. For our everydayers, if you're an everydayer who listens to Locked On Boston College every day, you are our MVP. If you want a second listen, check out Locked On ACC. They have a great episode with Kenton Gibbs and Alex Donna waiting for you on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, the high school season has started. BC recruiting has kind of quieted down. Good and bad, because we haven't heard a lot about any flips or guys that are looking elsewhere. You've had a few offers and some other things going on. But for the most part, your class is basically solidified right now. But BC has had a few of their players start to put up some crazy big numbers, and really had some big games so far this fall. One name I want to mention, and one that I honestly don't talk a lot about on this podcast, is Steve Klein. Steve Klein is a linebacker from Westwood, New Jersey. And, when you got him, he only had one other offer. It was Syracuse. So things were pretty quiet about this kid. You're like, oh, cool, this is good. But I don't know much about him. He is playing out of his mind right now for Westwood. Every game you look up his stats, he has more than a dozen tackles. He's got tackles for losses, interceptions, forced fumbles, like everything you want. BC needs linebackers bad. Right now, you see it with the roster that they have. They need to continue to build that depth there. And Steve Klein is a perfect addition to them. I've been so pumped to see, like, every time there's new game film out, it's always like Steve Klein did, like, all this stuff. So, this is a kid from New Jersey. I love linebackers from New Jersey. If there's a better place to get linebackers from, I haven't found it yet. You love that. You love to see it. Steve Klein is one name I cannot wait to see more of. And I think he doesn't have a huge profile on 247 or anything like that, but so far he's really impressed playing at Westwood. The other name I wanted to mention as well is William Vaughn, Tex Vaughn. He's from North Carolina. It was Forrest Gump that made that joke where it was like somebody from some other state and they call him Tex. This is what it reminds me of William Vaughn. I don't know why they call him Tex. But he tags me on, he's great because he tags me on everything all his highlight films. And he tagged me today. His last weekend, he had 3 touchdown catches. He is one kind of under the radar, but still a really good get for BC because remember, this is a guy with offers from West Virginia, Virginia Tech, South Carolina, his home state. He was well, recruited by a lot of schools, and he just fell in love with BC and committed quickly. I think BC is going to lose Jeremiah Franklin next year. You're starting to build really good depth there. You see Kalen Chudzinski already starting to play. I watched this camp and I saw Stevie Amar looking really good. And then you get guys like Derek Johnson coming up. You're getting more and more depth there, but don't sleep on Tex Vaughn because this guy, maybe, I don't know what his deal is in terms of coming in early or not, but a year or two, he's showing his hands. Like, this is not a guy that's going to come in with a stat sheet that says he had like 12 catches for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 3 touchdowns the last game and over 100 yards receiving. Perfect addition to what BC does with their offense. I really think this is a great get for BC, and he's already showing it off. And then the final recruit that I have heard a ton about, and again, it's more of the under-radar recruits, is Jackson Carlisle. Jackson Carlisle is a defensive lineman out of Central High School in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Again, a recruit that didn't have very many offers at all. And every game that I look up, he's a defensive lineman with multiple sacks, like 10 tackles at defensive tackle, like solid stat sheets. So he reminds me the way that his senior season is going, almost to like what Sterling Sanders did last year, where you're seeing him like, he had no buzz before this, and all of a sudden now it's like, oh, he's playing in Alabama, he's doing all this. I've really been impressed with what I've seen from Jackson Carlisle. I think he's going to be a real solid under the radar get for BC. And honestly, isn't that what you want at BC? Is the guys that you identify and the other schools don't? Because there's been plenty of guys BC's identified that other schools have now caught on. Jalen Williams, that linebacker that they had on over the summer, just got offered by Ohio State. So like, there's a bunch of guys that BC was like really in on early that they just haven't been able to hold on to. Jackson Carlisle is one I think they will, and I think it'll be a real treat in a couple of years. So those are 3 names. I purposely kept off Femi Babalola and DJ Bordeaux. I could do a whole episode on those 2 guys because I think they're having an outstanding season too. But I wanted to get into some of the players that maybe you haven't really talked about enough. And I gave you 3 for this episode. So here's how the rest of this week goes. Tomorrow, we're going to continue our discussion on Cal. Anything new and exciting, we'll discuss it here. On Friday's show, we'll have Mitchell Wolf on. He's going to dive into what Cal is and what makes them dangerous and all that stuff. We'll do predictions. We'll do all that. On Saturday, I'll be at the game. I will do a post-game live show from the Alumni Stadium press box, like I always do. So we've got a whole bunch of shows coming up here. Make sure you are staying locked in by subscribing on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247 or on any social media app, whether it's Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, all those things. TikTok, I'm everywhere. Just come find me. I'll come say hi. Thank you all for following along, and we'll see you again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.